Lagos was drowning in humidity and noise the night Tunde Ajayi received the photograph that changed his life. The message had come via signal, from an anonymous number he didn't recognize. At first glance, it looked like one of the many spam tips he got as an investigative journalist for the Sentinel, Lagos's last truly independent newspaper. But something about this one made him pause. The photo was grainy, taken in poor light, but unmistakable in its form. The famous Mask of Ile-Ife, an artifact long believed to be in the British Museum, sat on a concrete floor next to a man in military fatigues. Below the image, a caption: "Not everything stolen stayed in Europe. Look deeper. They're burying the truth." He stared at it for a long moment before saving it to a secure drive and deleting the message. Then he reached for his notebook. By morning, Tunde was back at the Sentinel's office in Yaba, a dusty third floor walk-up above a print shop that smelled perpetually of ink and sweat. The editor-in-chief, Uzumako Onyenemezu, looked up from her desk with a raised eyebrow as he walked in with his camera bag and a cup of Nescafe. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," he replied, dropping the photo onto her desk. "What do you think of this?" She leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "Is that the Mask of Ile-Ife?" "I think it is, but not the one in London. This one looks recent, dirty, and the man next to it could be military." Uzumako frowned. "Where did you get this?" "Anonymous drop. Last night." She stared at the image another moment, then leaned back slowly. "This could be explosive, or a trap. That's why I want to follow it. I have a contact at the National Museum. Maybe they can verify whether this could be a forgery." Uzumako gave a curt nod. "But be careful. If this is real, someone might be willing to kill to keep it buried." The National Museum was an aging structure near Anakin Roundabout, sun-bleached and forgotten despite housing some of the nation's most prized cultural relics. Tunde met his contact, Dr. Yusuf, a curator with a passion for Yoruba antiquities and a chronic distrust of bureaucracy. Yusuf examined the photo with a frown. "This is troubling. The patina looks authentic. And this pattern? Very few forgers get the bronze layering on the forehead right. This could be one of the missing twin masks." "Twin masks?" "Yes, there were two. One went missing in the 1950s, last seen in a private collection in Belgium. The other ended up in the British Museum. If this is the missing one, then someone smuggled it back? Or never took it out in the first place," Yusuf said darkly. Tunde's pulse quickened. "Any idea where this photo might have been taken?" Yusuf zoomed in on the image. "That patch on the man's shoulder, that's not Nigerian military. Could be Cameroonian or Congolese." Tunde's mind started turning. A cross-border operation, smuggling, maybe even a rogue militia. This was no longer just about art theft. That night, he met with his closest colleague, Ifeoma, over pepper soup and cold star beer. He showed her the photo, the notes, Yusuf's assessment. "So you're telling me one of the most famous African artifacts might have never left the continent? Or has returned quietly, and someone doesn't want us to know? What's your next step?" "I need to trace the military insignia, then dig into recent shipments of artifacts. Maybe check with customs." Ifeoma tapped her fingers on the table. "Be careful, Tunde. People who mess with this kind of history tend to disappear." He nodded, but his eyes were already distant. 2 days later, Ifeoma was dead. They found her body in her apartment, staged to look like a suicide. But Tunde knew her better than that. She'd been fearless, yes, but not reckless. And she would never have left her notes unlocked. Her laptop had been wiped, her phone smashed. Only one thing remained untouched: a printed photo of the mask, folded neatly in the book she was reading. Tunde barely made it back to his car before he began to shake. He sat behind the wheel for almost an hour, the city buzzing around him, his breath shallow. She had been his friend, his partner, his anchor, and now she was gone. He opened his glove compartment and retrieved a USB drive, the only backup of the files they had worked on together. He inserted it into his phone and encrypted the contents again, then tucked it into his sock. If someone had killed Ifeoma for what they knew, they would come for him next. Tunde didn't go home that night. Instead, he checked into a dingy hotel off Ikorita Road under a false name. He began sending encrypted emails to every journalist he trusted across Africa. One of them, a South African named Amelie Dlamini, replied within hours. "I have seen this mask before. In Kinshasa. You are not crazy. Meet me, but come alone." By the end of the week, Tunde was on a plane to Congo. He didn't know what he would find. He didn't know who was watching. But he knew one thing for certain. Someone had spent decades burying the truth. And the shadows were starting to move.